It was never meant to be beautiful. And yet, for nearly a century, linoleum became the literal foundation of middle-class life. Underfoot in hospitals, schools, kitchens, steamships, and storefronts. From Detroit to Dusseldorf. At its peak, it wasn't just flooring. It was an industrial achievement, an ecological preview, and an emblem of human ingenuity in a messy world. The story begins in 1860, when a 28-year-old British engineer named Frederick Walton observed a curious phenomenon. An open can of linseed oil left near a window had formed a thick skin on the top. Most people would have scraped it off, but Walton, he experimented. He found that when the oil oxidized and polymerized, it hardened into a leathery film. If he accelerated that process, combined the hardened mass with powdered cork, wood flour, rosin, and natural pigments, and pressed it onto coarse jute cloth, the result was something shockingly useful. Flexible, yet firm. Waterproof, biodegradable, and durable. He patented the process in 1863, calling the material linoleum, a hybrid of linum, Latin for flax, and oleum, Latin for oil. It was the first product in history to use a synthetic name to describe a manufactured good. This is decades before nylon or plexiglass. By 1864, production had scaled. And by 1877, factories were stamping out thousands of square yards of linoleum per day. And it did not take long for linoleum to conquer floors everywhere. In the late 19th century, European hospitals adopted it for its antibacterial properties. Natural linseed oil oxidizes over time into compounds hostile to many microbes. It became the standard in medical wards, operating theaters, and later, naval ships. In fact, during World War I, British warships lined their decks with a version of linoleum for insulation and ease of cleaning. Roughly 20,000 square feet. Back home, linoleum reached American consumers by the 1890s. At around 50 cents per square yard, equivalent to about $15 today, it was considered affordable, yet dignified. It was better than bare wood, less expensive than parquet. By the 1920s, styles had evolved into elaborate inlaid patterns, with some tiles mimicking Persian carpets, mosaic stone, and Art Deco motifs. But its real genius was behind the scenes. Linoleum was quiet underfoot. It had a friction coefficient that made slipping less likely. It absorbed impact and was warmer than stone. In a 6-foot by 100-foot roll, 1.83 meters by 30.5 meters, a single sheet could weigh over 400 pounds, 181 kilograms, and this allowed installers to lay it flat with minimal adhesive. And unlike vinyl, which came later, linoleum was made entirely from renewable materials. Linseed oil from flax, cork from tree bark, wood flour from sawmills, and natural pigments like iron oxide or umber. At the end of its lifespan, it could be composted. It didn't off-gas plasticizers. It didn't shed microplastics into the air. So, why did it nearly disappear? Well, you see, after World War II, petroleum chemistry took over. Polyvinyl chloride, PVC, it was so much cheaper and easier to print, faster to install. Linoleum required curing time, specialized pressing, and old-world craftsmanship. Vinyl needed a drum, a die, and a decal. By the late 1950s, linoleum had become a misnomer. Most so-called linoleum floors were actually vinyl, or vinyl asbestos brands. But not everywhere. In Europe, linoleum remained in public infrastructure. The floors of Helsinki's Parliament House, built in 1931, are still covered in original linoleum. So are the corridors at Bauhaus-era schools across Germany. And in 1992, a resurgence began, driven by environmental concerns, indoor air quality studies, and the green building movement. Architects sought out true linoleum once again. Today, one of the world's largest producers is Forbo Flooring, headquartered in the Netherlands. Their flagship product, Linoleum, is made using the same natural ingredients as Walton's original 1860 patent: linseed oil, pine rosin, wood flour, ground limestone, pigments, and jute backing. It's still cured for weeks in ovens, still hand-rolled, still heavy, dense, and dead honest. And here's the deeper truth. Linoleum never needed reinvention because it never stopped working. It was a 19th century solution to a 21st century problem. Durable, sustainable, and quiet beneath the daily storm of human life. That's why when the Pullman Company designed its luxury rail cars in the 1910s, they lined the sleeper car floors with linoleum. It was tough enough for constant foot traffic, sanitary enough for closed quarters, and elegant enough to print in imitation walnut, tile, or marble. For decades, passengers slept, dined, and crossed the United States on those floors, never realizing they walked on oil and jute. It was comfort without ceremony. Linoleum, not plastic, not trendy, and it was never meant to be beautiful. It just lasted. These are Interesting Things with JC.